Hello, I'm here to talk to you today about why I emigrated to Portugal in 2018. One of the key reasons I moved was actually my health. I was working flat out as a talking therapist. I was running a clinic, working a lot of hours. I was living in a 2-up, 2-down mid-terraced house with Dave and 2 dogs. Admittedly, a lovely little house in the Cotswolds in a village. Very small garden, and was feeling somewhat claustrophobic. Was also realising that I would pay my mortgage off when I was about 74, 75, if I lived that long. And various things all came together at the same time. We did a last minute holiday to Portugal, fell in love with the place, happened to spot this property and fell in love with that too. It also coincided with my liver consultant saying, not much we can do for you, just come back every 6 months, and you've got a bigger chance of getting liver cancer because of the underlying health issues. Great. So anyway, we upped tools. We decided we were going to put our house on the market without too much pre-thought. This happened very quickly. First week of July 2018, we came out here on this week's holiday, discovered what we loved about the place, and we moved in the November. Now, this included getting somebody to take over the running of the clinic that I was running. So we were managing it from afar and asking her to help out in the clinic. Having to say goodbye to family. I have a very close family. I have a son I adore. My late mother was still alive, and I've got 3 younger sisters. And we also had a really good group of friends. So that was a toughie. I'm going to go for a wander for the next bit because it's getting a bit breezy up here. We do live on a very big hill, which can get windy from time to time. And that's something I would say we didn't do, was actually check out where we were going to live in detail before we moved here. We followed our hearts rather than doing what a lot of people do, which is sensible, and come out for, if possible, an extended stay. Sort of 3 months, you really begin to get a feel for the place. Anyway, one of the other things, so moving here, we just decided to do it because, as a lot of people said to us, gosh, you're brave. But you know what? I felt it was braver to stay in the UK. With the health system, in my particular instance, although it had saved my life twice, it was walking away at that point and saying, look, there's nothing we can do. And I came here thinking, well, what have I got to lose? But I feel as though a better lifestyle, a slower lifestyle, would help. And also the cost of properties in Gloucestershire, especially in the Cotswolds, ridiculously high. And the cost of houses in Portugal, in certain areas, extremely reasonable. So we were able to sell up, upsize big time, from a 2-up, 2-down with a handkerchief for a garden, admittedly in a beautiful place, but to a 5-bedroom farmhouse with, okay, needed some renovation, but with 1,000 square metres of land. But also we recognised by moving away from my work, I would have to slow down, which I did for sort of a nanosecond, the first month we were here. But I was still teaching hypnotherapy out in Belfast, so I was flying back to England once a month. That took its toll, and still seeing clients online. Then COVID hit. Everything shut down. I was still working because I could work online, so that was great. But clients went quieter, and that allowed me a bit of breathing space. So I put notice into doing the lecturing. We actually sold the clinic, okay, for a massively discounted price within COVID. So, hey, work didn't stop. And that took the pressure off. Now, in the meantime, we've been introduced to a lovely liver consultant at Coimbra University Hospital. What a difference. She said, we've got this medication we can put you on. We'll sort out the blocked bile ducts in your liver. And we've never looked back since. So I would say the healthcare system here, if you have serious issues, where we live in central Portugal, is really, really good. I've heard, although I've not experienced, that if it's not life-threatening and it's a bit more minor, then the waiting lists can be pretty long to get the treatment you need. I don't know for sure on that one because we've not experienced it. I did break my foot after a bad fall in January, and I say we couldn't have expected better healthcare. It was really good. And so the stress relief, not having any financial things to think about because we'd upsized and cleared the mortgage, living debt-free, huge relief. But what I've discovered, and Dave and I frequently say this when we talk about living in Portugal, I'm just going down a step and that's how I fell, so that's why I'm just being a bit careful. It's like living in the 1960s with our pace of life, but with 2026 technology, until a storm hits and knocks it out. But in the main, we do joke and say we feel as though we're living in a bubble protected from the world of negativity at the moment. And that's because of a negative, actually, we don't understand the language. So if people are complaining about politics or the world or whatever down the local bar, we don't know because we can't understand. And it gives us a really interesting view of life, a difference. Now, one of the challenges has been the language. We had online sessions, only about 6 or 8 before we came here, once we knew we were coming here. Once we got here, we had face-to-face lessons with a lovely lady. And we did get the very, very, very basics. I mean, very basics. Hello, how are you? It's raining, it's sunny, thank you, etc. The real basics. Because Portuguese is difícil. Portuguese is difficult. Now, English is difficult to learn as well. Many languages are. We made the mistake of starting, before we came across our teacher, to learn Portuguese. Turned out we were learning Brazilian Portuguese, which they do speak throughout Portugal on and off, mainly in the cities. But predominantly they'll talk European Portuguese, which, as our Portuguese teacher said, is a cross between Spanish and Russian. And she's not wrong. We did lessons for a year until I said, do you know what, Dave? It's spoiling my enjoyment of Portugal because I'm so stressed by the time we come to a lesson because I haven't done my homework, because I've been working flat out still with clients. And also, we're in this tiny village. There were no neighbours. All the houses around us were empty, which is very typical of mid-Portugal. And so after a year, we stopped the lessons. We should have carried on. That was a big mistake. However, there was a lot of other stuff going on. Both our mothers were failing, etc., etc. There were emergency trips back to England, all sorts going on. Yesterday, I went down and spoke to my Portuguese teacher, said, hello, remember me from 6 years ago? And I've signed up for the next course in September in Alveesra, the local town. I have picked up a lot more of odd words, more than I realise. And so I can get by, but I want to do more than get by. And I do recognise I'll never be fluent because I'm not great at languages, full stop. I think the grey hair doesn't help, okay? But some people I know of my age have taken to it like a duck to water. So it's horses for courses. It's down to you as an individual. Our lives have changed beyond recognition. We wander around this garden. When we showed you the garden before and after, it's kept Dave so occupied that he's not been bored, which he was in the UK once he retired. And that, as a talking therapist, I know is really dangerous. It's really bad if it's getting bored. I've got the type of personality, I like some change occasionally. I like newness. So driving down through France and Spain to emigrate here, really happy, really enjoying it, and love the settling in. And that's what I've also liked about the evolving work we're doing with the garden, with the house, etc. We will do a before and after of the house at some stage. But emigrating comes with its challenges. There's the paperwork. Now, we emigrated before Brexit. It was much easier. Now, it's still very doable. And we know people who know what to do now. So don't ask us, but we can put you in contact with people who know the paperwork now. We certainly are not up to speed on that side of things, but we do know people who've just emigrated recently. There was also the leaving behind, which I've touched on with family. But at the time, we had 2 dogs. We had a very elderly chocolate Labrador called Millicent. And Millie had been really ill. And there was no way I wanted to put her down because we were moving to Portugal. Now, she was on palliative care. The vet said, anytime you feel it's right for her to go, I agree with you. And that was 3 months before we even knew we were coming to Portugal. But it was a trauma to have her put down 2 weeks before we came. On the flip side, Josie, our lurcher, loved Portugal for the 5 years she was here with us because she had space. We had more ground. I mean, look, I'm sitting here watching the fish sort of semi while talking to you. But, we've got this huge garden. Well, this is the top garden. We've also got the paddock where that renowned polytunnel of mine is. It's going better now, people. But anyway, what don't I like about Portugal is my own fault. It's a struggle with the language. And that's where I'm going to persevere. I'm already doing an app with Portuguese to get me ready for September. What else I don't like is, now this could be England these days as well, so it's not Portugal, it's global, the extremes of temperature. In Portugal, now some Dutch friends of ours that we met here say the same about Northern Europe and the Netherlands, and this applies to England. You get really cold. I mean, we used to have snowdrifts 6-8 foot tall where we lived. Here, it's more of a damp cold that gets into your bones. Now, we don't hit freezing that often. The Duck's water bowl has occasionally frozen once or twice a year. I've occasionally seen snow, like once every 3 or 4 years, but it never settles. And it's very light and it's gone before it comes almost. But depending on the property you buy, this can be an issue. So you need an insulated property. We're lucky because we've got an old stone building with 18-inch thick walls, which keeps us cool in the summer and warm in the winter. But we do have a pellet burner, a central heating system, and we have a log burner. And even then, occasionally, I'm still going to put my heated throw on over the top of me in the depths of January, February time. It also rains a lot here, and that I really hadn't factored in. I find it quite amazing, actually. I don't like fluffy rain where it makes my hair curl but doesn't do much else, which is quite often what I used to get in the UK. Here, I looked out my office window down into the valley one day and saw this wall of something coming to it. I thought, what on earth's that? And it was like sheet rain. It was like monsoon. So when it rains here, it properly rains. Now, I quite like that. What I'm not so keen on is the fact it can go on for months, weeks and weeks, and maybe even a few months in the winter. So this is mid-Portugal for you. And finally, and the biggest negative after the language, is the wildfires. I hadn't really reckoned on that, how many we would see. Because we're high up on a hill, we look down, we can see for miles, and we see smoke. And in the summer, that is a sign to keep an eye on it. What's the direction? Be aware. Now, since the horrific fire in 2017 that killed quite a few hundred people, things have improved hugely. And the bombeiros, the firemen, are just amazing. So things have changed. But I would say if you ever contemplate moving to Portugal, don't move directly near eucalyptus trees because they are tinder in the summer. And we're surrounded by eucalyptus trees. So if I hear the sirens go off at the local bombeiros, I come out onto the patio to have a look round, and I'm aware of it. I've got used to it, and it is something you get used to. If you're in the middle of a town or a village, then you're absolutely fine, or should be. It is quite incredible how the fires are dealt with now. There was a massive fire at the other side of our hill 2 years ago. There was 800 firefighters fighting it. I can't remember how many fire planes they were, but they were bringing them in from Spain. It was a huge thing. But when we drove down some weeks later, every single house that we drove past in the centre of the fire was completely untouched. The trees in their garden might have burnt, but the houses were untouched. This is not something to stop you moving to Portugal if you were thinking about it. It's just be aware of it so that when you purchase a property or rent a property, you've got some space around you. What I love about Portugal is you're guaranteed a summer. I love the people. They're so friendly. Our next door neighbours now, we've got new next door neighbours, well, they've been there a couple of years now, are just great. The village love us. We heard from a late neighbour who sadly died that the villagers love us because we're bringing life into the village, because a lot of the villages are half dead, where people have moved to the cities, the youngsters have moved to the cities. So they've welcomed us here with open arms. We're very aware that the national wage is really low, and that the influx of immigrants from UK, America, Germany, Netherlands, South Africa, all over the place, are pushing prices up. So a bit similar to places like Cornwall in England, the locals can't afford to stay local. So we're very conscious of that. But they're so welcoming. And if you try and speak the language, they really help you. There's just a general lovely feeling to the place, more of a positive air. And as I've touched on before, that it's for us now, even whilst I'm still working and heading towards retirement, it's a slower pace of life. And that's why our channel's called Good Here, Isn't It? Because it is good here. There's lots of little things as well that make it different. We're working on currently a video to do price comparisons. You know, something else I like about Portugal, I've got space here. I've got a bigger house, which I'm eternally grateful for. I've got room to put things in. But more importantly for me, I've got more outside space. Our little garden in Gloucestershire was really sweet, but there was nothing to do to it. We got the tiniest patch of lawn, which took about 15 minutes to mow. Okay, here. It takes us sometimes longer than that. But there's always there's always a space to put another plant in. There's growth. And I just love having that ability to change things. And look. And the bees. You might not see it, but up there, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I'm losing count now because they're all moving around. Good here, isn't it?